Hi folks. Timescape by Gregory Benford was published in 1980. Timescape is a fascinating science fiction novel that weaves together the concepts of time travel of a kind, ecological catastrophe, the scientific method, with a dose of human nature added for good measure. The story unfolds in a near future Earth, 1998, so 20 years ahead of when the story was written, where humanity is facing an impending environmental catastrophe. Scientists from the present day are attempting to communicate with scientists in the early 1960s, striving to avert a disaster through a communication technique involving tachyons, which are subatomic particles that can travel faster than light, and because they can travel faster than light, they can go back in time. That's some scientific detail that we get pretty early on. So obviously they're trying to communicate something backwards in time that would allow an intervention or interventions to be made so that things aren't completely fucked in the future. There's a large supporting cast, but the two main protagonists are Gregory Bernstein, who's a physicist based in La Jolla in California in 1963, and a chap called John Renfrew, who's also a physicist, but based in the Cavendish Laboratory in Cambridge, England in 1998. Fittingly for a book where the two main characters are scientists and where the author is also a scientist, there is a lot of science in this story. We spend a lot of time with the science teams in laboratories, so kind of fine-tuning their equipment, either trying to send the tachyon signals into the past or to make sense of the signals at the other end. And Timescape is full of scientific detail, creating a believable and immersive world. The meticulous attention to scientific accuracy enhances the story's credibility, I think, making the speculative aspects of time travel of a sort. No one's actually travelling except the messages. The speculative aspects of time travel more compelling without being too overwhelming. So there's a lot of science in it. It's not dumbed down at all, but it's not difficult to follow. I thought that the characters in Timescape are well crafted and multidimensional, grappling with the weight of their responsibilities and the consequences of their actions. The emotional struggles and ethical quandaries that they face make them relatable and human. And I would add their personal lives. There's quite a lot of interactions with their other halves. There are affairs, there are friendships and so on, all of which suffer because the scientists are working so hard. And those are all pretty relatable challenges. Gregory Benford, leaning heavily on his own experience as a scientist, skillfully portrays the personal and professional challenges that the scientists endure, which I think offers a realistic view of their world in as far as I'm qualified to judge. As I said, the relationships and the interactions among the characters are tightly woven, providing a sense of authenticity, I think, to the story. I enjoyed the structure of the novel, so shifting between the different time periods, so from the present day or 1998 in the story to 1963, so those viewpoints chop and change. Sometimes they stick in one era for a couple of chapters, and sometimes they switch from one chapter to the next, and we get a few different points of view. So it's the two main characters I talked about, and then a couple of supporting characters that get their own chapters from time to time. So we do chop and change a bit from viewpoint to viewpoint, from era to era, but I thought the transitions were pretty seamless. I was able to easily navigate the intricacies of the plot. It did feel quite modern or quite contemporary as a novel from a structure point of view. That's a device used in lots of novels these days, and I think it worked well. I thought that the pacing was good, pretty well balanced. I felt engaged throughout, and I thought that Benford did a great job ratcheting up the tension as we went through the book. Mainly there's the fraughtness of the, can I get the message through? Do they understand it? How do we know they've understood it? That's one aspect of it. But also Benford kind of gave us more and more hints about the accelerating pace at which the world was going to hell in a handcart, with more and more details about the ecological collapse and the implications of that on everyday life, on the kind of general running down of things. So that goes to world building. I think that was pretty exemplary. We got a really vivid picture of both the present and the past. The future society, so 1998, that society grappling with that ecological disaster feels eerily prescient in today's world, kind of uncomfortably close at hand. Things in this 1998 are not good. The economy is going down the pan, resources are scarce, food is rationed, and budgets are tight. The scientists in 1998 have to scrimp and scrounge and almost beg for funding in order to get the equipment that they need to more consistently send the messages. We get plenty of hints, but it is a background detail. We get plenty of hints at the nature of the ecological damage. It's something to do with runaway chemical reactions in the sea. damage from pollution or farming. Plus there's a healthy dose of societal breakdown with people wandering the countryside looking for food, breaking into sheds and garages and things. The impact of this on daily life in England, I think, is well handled. It's kind of understated in the background, but it seems only too feasible to me. So it's not the apocalypse, nor is it the post-apocalypse, but it's definitely heading in that direction and pretty damn quickly. The guys, the men, the scientists at either end of the Heath Robinson tachyon communication system are kind of working all the hours that God sends. Professor Bernstein in Colorado in 1963 is kind of sidelined at work because of his insistence that he effectively either sounds like a madman or someone that's very wrong or drawing the wrong conclusions from their experiment. He's insisting that he's receiving messages from the future, and his colleagues, at least at first, think he's like bananas. I felt like that skepticism of his colleagues and superiors, they're kind of distancing themselves from him professionally, from his conclusions, was quite realistic. The impact of the scientists at both ends' obsessions is felt most keenly in their relationships, in their personal lives, and I enjoyed those aspects of the story as well. It helped to make what might otherwise have been a rather dry, kind of sciencey story more human. Without going into too many details, I also enjoyed the ambiguous ending. Were the communications established sufficiently so that enough information has got through to the past to allow action to be taken that will prevent the ecological disaster in the future? And if so, why is it that the sneaky government type in 1998 is still stocking his bunker for the end of the world? We get given enough clues in the science to think it through and draw a conclusion, but Benford doesn't give us chapter and verse. It's there to be worked out. Despite being written over 40 years ago, the fact that Benford's dire predictions of future ecological disaster seem all too realistic these days is not a comforting thought. Overall then, I thought that Timescape by Gregory Benford is a good read. It's intellectually stimulating, and it's his unusual exploration of time travel, the ecological concerns and human nature that kind of wraps around it, I thought was executed skillfully, and overall was a compelling story. I give it a strong 8 out of 10. Let me know what you thought of this review. Have you read this book? Have you read any of Gregory Benford's other books? I'd be interested to hear from you. But otherwise, until next time, bye for now.